Puerto Rico is a self-governing Caribbean archipelago and island organized as an unincorporated territory of United States under the designation of Commonwealth. Located 1,600 kilometers southeast of Miami, Florida, between Dominican Republic in Greater Antilles and U.S. Virgin Islands in Lesser Antilles, it consists of the eponymous main island and numerous smaller islands including Vieques, Culebra, and Mona. With 3.2 million residents, it is divided into 78 municipalities, of which the most populous is the capital municipality of San Juan, followed by those within San Juan metropolitan area. Spanish and English are the official languages of the government, though Spanish predominates. Puerto Rico was settled by a succession of Amerindian peoples beginning 2,000 to 4,000 years ago, including Ortuarod, Saladoid, and Taino. It was claimed by Spain following the arrival of Christopher Columbus in 1493 and subsequently colonized by Juan Ponce de Leon in 1508. Puerto Rico was contested by other European powers into 18th century but remained Spanish possession for the next 400 years. Decline of indigenous population, followed by influx of Spanish settlers from Canary Islands and Andalusia and African slaves, vastly changed the cultural and demographic landscape of the archipelago. Within Spanish Empire, Puerto Rico played secondary but strategically significant role compared to larger and wealthier colonies like Peru and New Spain. By late 19th century, a distinct Puerto Rican identity began to emerge, centered on fusion of European, African, and indigenous elements. In 1898, following Spanish-American War, Puerto Rico was acquired by the United States. Puerto Ricans have been U.S. citizens since 1917 and can move freely between the archipelago and mainland. However, residents of Puerto Rico are disenfranchised from federal elections and generally do not pay federal income tax. In common with 4 other territories, Puerto Rico sends a non-voting representative resident commissioner to U.S. Congress to participate in presidential primaries. As it is not a state, Puerto Rico does not have a vote in U.S. Congress oversees it under Puerto Rico Federal Relations Act of 1950. Congress approved territorial constitution in 1952, allowing residents of the archipelago to elect a governor in addition to a Senate and House of Representatives. The political status of Puerto Rico is an ongoing debate. Beginning in mid-20th century, U.S. government together with Puerto Rico Industrial Development Company launched series of economic projects to develop Puerto Rico into an industrial high-income economy. It is classified by International Monetary Fund as a developed jurisdiction with advanced, high-income economy. It ranks 40th on Human Development Index. The major sectors of Puerto Rico's economy are manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, petrochemicals, and electronics, followed by services, tourism, and hospitality. Puerto Rico consists of the main island of Puerto Rico and various smaller islands including Vieques, Culebra, Mona, Desakillo, and Caja de Muertos. Of these 5, only Culebra and Vieques are inhabited year-round. Mona, which played a key role in maritime history, is uninhabited most of the year except for employees of Puerto Rico Department of Natural Resources. Many other even smaller islets like Monito located near Mona and Isla de Cabras and La Isleta de San Juan, both located on San Juan Bay. The latter is the only inhabited islet with communities like Old San Juan and Puerto de Tierra which connected to the main island by bridges. Commonwealth of Puerto Rico has an area of 13,800 kilometers square, of which 8,900 kilometers square is land and 4,900 kilometers square is water. Puerto Rico is larger than Delaware and Rhode Island but smaller than Connecticut. The maximum length of the main island from east to west is 180 kilometers and the maximum width from north to south is 64 kilometers. Puerto Rico is the smallest of Greater Antilles. It is 80% of the size of Jamaica, just over 18% of the size of Hispaniola and 8% of the size of Cuba, the largest of the Greater Antilles. Topography of the island is mostly mountainous with large flat areas in the northern and southern coasts. The main mountain range crosses the island from east to west is called Cordillera Central. Highest elevation in Puerto Rico, Cerro de Punta 1,340 meters is located in this range. Another important peak is El Yunque, one of the highest in Sierra de Luquillo at El Yunque National Forest with elevation of 1,065 meters. Puerto Rico has 17 lakes, all man-made, and more than 50 rivers, most of which originate in Cordillera Central. Rivers in the northern region of the island are longer and higher water flow rates than those of the south, since the south receives less rain than central and northern regions. Puerto Rico, composed of Cretaceous to Eocene volcanic and plutonic rocks, overlain by younger Oligocene and more recent carbonates and sedimentary rocks. Most of the caverns and karst topography on the island occurs in the northern region. Oldest rocks are 190 million years old Jurassic and located at Sierra Bermeja in the southwest part of the island. They may represent part of the oceanic crust and believed to come from Pacific Ocean realm. Puerto Rico lies at the boundary between Caribbean and North American plates and deformed by tectonic stresses caused by their interaction. These stresses cause earthquakes and tsunamis. These seismic events, along with landslides, represent some of the most dangerous geologic hazards in the island and northeastern Caribbean. 1918 San Fomin earthquake occurred on the 11th of October, 1918, magnitude of 7.5 on the Richter scale. It originated off the coast of Aguadilla, several kilometers off the northern coast, and accompanied by tsunami. It caused extensive property damage and widespread losses, damaging infrastructure, especially bridges. It resulted 116 deaths and $4 million in property damage. The failure of the government to move rapidly to provide for the general welfare contributed to political activism by opponents and eventually to the rise of Puerto Rican Nationalist Party. On the 7th of January, 2020, the country experienced largest earthquake since 1918 at magnitude 6.4. Economic losses estimated more than $3.1 billion. Puerto Rico Trench, the largest and deepest trench in Atlantic, is located 114 kilometers north of Puerto Rico at the boundary between Caribbean and North American plates. It is 270 kilometers long. At its deepest point, Milwaukee Deep, it is 8,400 meters deep. Mona Canyon, located in Mona Passage between Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic, is another prominent oceanic landform with steep walls measuring between 2.01 and 3.49 kilometers in height from bottom to top. Climate of Puerto Rico in the Köppen climate classification is mostly tropical rainforest. Temperatures are warm to hot year-round, averaging 29 degrees Celsius in lower elevations and 21 degrees Celsius in the mountains. Easterly trade winds pass across the island year-round. Puerto Rico has rainy season which stretches from April into November and dry season stretching from December to March. The mountains of Cordillera Central create rain shadow and main cause of variations in the temperature and rainfall that occur over very short distances. The mountains also cause wide variation in local wind speed and direction due to their sheltering and channeling effects, adding to climatic variation. Daily temperature changes seasonally are small in the lowlands and coastal areas. Between dry and wet seasons, there is a temperature change of around 3.3 degrees Celsius. This change is due mainly to the warm waters of the tropical Atlantic Ocean, which significantly modify cooler air moving in from the north and northwest. Coastal water temperatures during the year are 24 degrees Celsius in February and 29 degrees Celsius in August. Highest temperature ever recorded was 43 degrees Celsius at Arecibo, while lowest temperature ever recorded was 4 degrees Celsius in the mountains at Ajuntas, A Benito, and Corozal. Average yearly precipitation 1,676 millimeters. Climate change in Puerto Rico has large impact on ecosystems and landscapes. Puerto Rico experiences Atlantic hurricane season, similar to the rest of Caribbean Sea and North Atlantic Ocean. On average, a quarter of annual rainfall contributed from tropical cyclones, which are more prevalent during periods of La Niña than El Niño. A cyclone of tropical storm strength passes near Puerto Rico, on average every 5 years. Hurricane passes in the vicinity of the island on average every 7 years. Since 1851, Lake Okeechobee hurricane of September 1928 is the only hurricane to make landfall as Category 5 hurricane. In 2017, Puerto Rico affected by Category 5 Hurricane Irma and Category 4 Hurricane Maria, causing widespread and devastating impacts, particularly to the electric grid. Puerto Rico is home to 3 terrestrial ecoregions: Puerto Rican moist forests, Puerto Rican dry forests and Greater Antilles mangroves. Puerto Rico has 2 biosphere reserves recognized by UNESCO Man and Biosphere Program. Luquillo Biosphere Reserve represented by El Yunque National Forest and Guanica Biosphere Reserve. Species endemic to the archipelago number 239 plants, 16 birds, and 39 amphibians reptiles, recognized as of 1998. Most of these are found on the main island. The most recognizable endemic species and symbol of Puerto Rican pride is the coqui, a small frog easily identified by the sound of its call from which it gets its name. Most coqui species 13 of 17 live in El Yunque National Forest, the only tropical rainforest in the U.S. Forest Service system located in the northeast of the island. It was previously known as Caribbean National Forest. El Yunque is home to more than 240 plants, 26 of which are endemic to the island. It is also home to 50 bird species including critically endangered Puerto Rican Amazon. In addition to El Yunque National Forest, Puerto Rican moist forest ecoregion is represented by protected areas such as Maricao and Toro Negro state forests. These areas are home to endangered endemic species such as Puerto Rican boa, Puerto Rican sharp-shinned hawk, Puerto Rican broad-winged hawk and elfinwoods warbler. The northern karst country of Puerto Rico is home to one of the remaining rainforest tracts in the island, with Rio Abajo State Forest being the first focus for reintroduction of the highly endangered Puerto Rican parrot outside of Sierra de Luquillo. In the southwest, Guanica State Forest and Biosphere Reserve contain over 600 uncommon species of plants and animals, including 48 endangered species and 16 endemic to Puerto Rico, and considered prime example of Puerto Rican dry forest ecoregion and the best preserved dry forest in the Caribbean. Other protected dry forests in Puerto Rico formed within Caribbean Islands National Wildlife Refuge Complex at Cabo Rojo, Desaquillo, Culebra, and Viques National Wildlife Refuges, and in Caja de Muertos and Mona and Monito Islands nature reserves. Examples of endemic species found in this ecoregion are Higo chumbo, Puerto Rican crested toad, and Mona ground iguana, the largest land animal native to Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico has 3 of the 7-year-long bioluminescent bays in the Caribbean: Laguna Grande in Fajardo, La Parguera in Lajes, and Puerto Mosquito in Viques. These are unique bodies of water surrounded by mangroves that are inhabited by the dinoflagellate Pyrodinium bahamense. However, tourism, pollution and hurricanes have highly threatened these unique ecosystems. Tourism in Puerto Rico is an important part of the economy. In 2017, Hurricane Maria caused severe damage to the island and its infrastructure, disrupting tourism for many months. The damage was estimated at $100 billion. April 2019 report indicated that by that time, only few hotels were still closed, that life for tourists in and around the capital had, for the most part, returned to normal. By October 2019, nearly all of the popular amenities for tourists in major destinations such as San Juan, Ponce, and Arecibo were in operation on the island, and tourism was rebounding. This was important for the economy, since tourism provides up to 10% of Puerto Rico's GDP, according to Discover Puerto Rico. Tourism campaign launched by Discover Puerto Rico in 2018 intended to highlight the island's culture and history, branding it distinct and different from other Caribbean destinations. In 2019, Discover Puerto Rico planned to continue that campaign. Cities and towns in Puerto Rico are interconnected by system of roads, freeways, expressways, and highways maintained by Highways and Transportation Authority under the jurisdiction of U.S. Department of Transportation and patrolled by Puerto Rico Police Department. The island's San Juan metropolitan area is served by public bus transit system and metro system Tren Urbano. Other forms of Puerto Rican public transport include seaborne ferries that serve Puerto Rico's archipelago, as well as Carros Públicos private minibuses. Puerto Rico has 3 international airports: Luis Muñoz Marin International Airport in Carolina, Mercedita International Airport in Ponce, and Rafael Hernández International Airport in Aguadilla, and 27 local airports. Luis Muñoz Marin International Airport is the largest aerial transportation hub in the Caribbean. Puerto Rico has 9 ports in different cities across the main island. San Juan Port is the largest in Puerto Rico and busiest port in Caribbean, and 10th busiest in the United States in terms of commercial activity and cargo movement, respectively. The second largest port is Port of the Americas in Ponce, currently under expansion to increase cargo capacity to 1.5 million 20-foot containers per year. The most populous municipality is the capital, San Juan, with 342,259 people based on the 2020 census. Other major cities include Bayamon, Carolina, Ponce, and Caguas. Of the 10 most populous cities on the island, 8 are located within San Juan's metropolitan area, while the other 2 are located in the south, Ponce, and west, Mayagüez, of the island. As of 2020, Hispanic or Latinos made up 98.9% of the population, of which 95.5% were Puerto Rican and 3.4% were Hispanic of non-Puerto Rican origins. Only 1.1% of the population was non-Hispanic. Modern Puerto Rican culture is a unique mix of cultural antecedents, including European, predominantly Spanish, Italian, French, German and Irish, African, and, more recently, some North American and many South Americans. Many Cubans and Dominicans have relocated to the island in the past few decades from the Spanish. Puerto Rico received the Spanish language, the Catholic religion, and the vast majority of their cultural and moral values and traditions. The United States added English language influence, the university system, and the adoption of some holidays and practices. On the 12th of March, 1903, the University of Puerto Rico was officially founded, branching out from the Escuela Normal Industrial, a smaller organization that was founded in Fajardo 3 years earlier. Much of Puerto Rican culture centers on the influence of music and has been shaped by other cultures combining with local and traditional rhythms. Early in the history of Puerto Rican music, the influences of Spanish and African traditions were most noticeable. The cultural movements across the Caribbean and North America have played a vital role in the more recent musical influences which have reached Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico has many symbols, but only the flor de maga has been made official by the government of Puerto Rico. Other popular, traditional, or unofficial symbols of Puerto Rico are the Puerto Rican spindalis, the kapok tree, the coqui frog, the jibaro, the Taino Indian, and Cerro Las Tetas with its Jibaro culture monument. Architecture of Puerto Rico demonstrates broad variety of traditions, styles, and national influences accumulated over 4 centuries of Spanish rule and a century of American rule. Spanish colonial architecture, Ibero-Islamic, Art Deco, postmodern, and other architectural forms are visible throughout the island. From town to town, there are also many regional distinctions. Old San Juan is one of the 2 barrios, in addition to Santurce, that made up municipality of San Juan from 1864 to 1951, at which time the former independent municipality of Rio Piedras was annexed. With abundance of shops, historic places, museums, open-air cafes, restaurants, gracious homes, tree-shaded plazas, and old beauty and architectonical peculiarity, Old San Juan is a main spot for local and internal tourism. The district is characterized by numerous public plazas and churches, including San Jose Church and Cathedral of San Juan Bautista, which contains tomb of Spanish explorer Juan Ponce de Leon. It also houses the oldest Catholic school for elementary education in Puerto Rico, Colegio de Párvulos, built in 1865. The oldest parts of the district of Old San Juan remain partly enclosed by massive walls. Several defensive structures and notable forts such as the emblematic Fort San Felipe del Morro, Fort San Cristobal and El Palacio de Santa Catalina, La Fortaleza, acted as primary defenses of the settlement, which subjected to numerous attacks. La Fortaleza continues to serve also as executive mansion for the governor of Puerto Rico. Many of the historic fortifications are part of San Juan National Historic Site. During 1940s, sections of Old San Juan fell into disrepair and renovation plans were suggested. There was even a strong push to develop Old San Juan as small Manhattan. Strict remodeling codes implemented to prevent new constructions from affecting the common colonial Spanish architectural themes of the old city. When project proposals suggested that old Carmelite convent in San Juan demolished to erect a new hotel, the institute had the building declared as a historic building and then asked to be converted to a hotel in a renewed facility. This was what became Hotel El Convento in Old San Juan. The paradigm to reconstruct and renovate the old city and revitalize it followed by other cities in the Americas, particularly Havana, Lima, and Cartagena de Indias. Ponce Creole is a unique architectural style created in Ponce, Puerto Rico in late 19th and early 20th centuries. This style of Puerto Rican buildings is found in residential homes in Ponce, developed between 1895 and 1920. Ponce Creole architecture borrows heavily from the traditions of France, Spain, and Caribbean vernacular to create houses that were especially built to withstand hot and dry climate of the region and take advantage of the sun and sea breezes characteristic of the southern Puerto Rico's Caribbean seacoast. It is a blend of wood and masonry, incorporating architectural elements of other styles from Classical Revival and Spanish Revival to Victorian. Puerto Rican cuisine has its roots in the cooking traditions and practices of Europe, Spain, Africa, and the native Tainos. Basic ingredients include grains and legumes, herbs and spices, starchy tropical tubers, vegetables, meat and poultry, seafood and shellfish, and fruits. Main dishes include mofongo, arroz con gandules, pastels, and pig roast, or lechon. Beverages include mayve and pina colada. Desserts include flan, arroz con dulce, sweet rice pudding, piraguas, brazo gitanos, tembleque, polvorones, and dulce de leche. The history of Puerto Rico began with the settlement of the Otwarod people before 430 BC. At the time of Christopher Columbus's arrival in the New World in 1493, the dominant indigenous culture was that of the Tainos. The Taino people's numbers went dangerously low during the later half of the 16th century because of new infectious diseases carried by Europeans, exploitation by Spanish settlers, and warfare. Located in the northeastern Caribbean, Puerto Rico formed a key part of the Spanish Empire from the early years of the exploration, conquest, and colonization of the New World. The island was a major military post during many wars between Spain and other European powers for control of the region in the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries. In 1593, Portuguese soldiers, sent from Lisbon by order of Philip II, composed the first garrison of the San Felipe del Morro fortress in Puerto Rico. Some brought their wives, while others married Puerto Rican women, and today there are many Puerto Rican families with Portuguese last names. The smallest of the Greater Antilles, Puerto Rico was a stepping stone in the passage from Europe to Cuba, Mexico, Central America, and the northern territories of South America. Throughout most of the 19th century until the conclusion of the Spanish or American War, Puerto Rico and Cuba were the last two Spanish colonies in the New World. They served as Spain's final outposts in a strategy to regain control of the American continents. Realizing that it was in danger of losing its two remaining Caribbean territories, the Spanish crown revived the Royal Decree of Graces of 1815. The decree was printed in Spanish, English, and French in order to attract Europeans, with the hope that the independence movements would lose their popularity and strength with the arrival of new settlers. Free land was offered to those who wanted to populate the islands on the condition that they swear their loyalty to the Spanish crown and allegiance to the Catholic Church. In 1898, during Spanish or American War, Puerto Rico was invaded and subsequently became possession of the U.S. Foraker Act of 1900 established civil government, ending rule by American generals and Department of War. Puerto Rico is one of 5 territories with less representation in the federal government, along with the Federal District.